About the gag orders real quick, because these things are just absolutely whack to me.
Yeah.
He's campaigning for president of the United States again, and they're putting gag orders on him so what he can and can't say about a trial that is actually fueling his campaign, raising millions of dollars on it. How is this? Could they even possibly throw him in jail? What would that look like?
He's protected by Secret Service,
sure.
Period. So I always tell people when they're panicked, listen, he's protected by Secret Service, number one. Number two, he did nothing wrong. So when people go to jail, it's because they've done something wrong. Right. Do we have crooked situations in and out of court? Absolutely. Could they try? Probably, but it won't work because there is still trial process. There is still facts, and unfortunately, they're not going to win on the facts. Secret Service will always protect President Trump. That's the truth. They have to, wherever he is. But it's not even something we think about, to be honest, because this is all political. It's really not. There's no criminal acts that he's done. There's no civil wrongs that he's done, unless making money for banks is a civil wrong all of a sudden.
Orange man bad. I mean, that's
terrible.
The crime.
It's Trump derangement syndrome at its best. I'm not worried about him. He's not worried, and the American public shouldn't be worried. He's succeeding for a reason.
Yeah, I will dare this judge to try to throw him in jail.
First Amendment. First Amendment is a thing.
It is a thing.
If you were wondering what kind of attorney would represent someone who incited an insurrection against our own government and tried to stop the legal certification of the election results, it's the kind of attorney who also shows up on television in a segment where the judge is, quote, dared to try and throw him in jail. And look, not for nothing, but now is probably not the best time to be daring the judge to do something that she's well within her rights to do. Now, first of all, the prospect of Trump being jailed pending trial has surged into the spotlight lately as the result of Trump's continued violation of his gag orders. He's already violated them twice in the New York Attorney General's trial, earning him $15,000 in fines, and his gag order was just reimposed in the Washington, D.C. trial as a result of his inability to not attack witnesses. And of course, within 75 minutes of that gag order getting reimposed, Trump took to Truth Social to attack his former Attorney General Bill Barr, who, yes, is a witness in that trial, writing, "I called Bill Barr dumb, weak, slow-moving, lethargic, gutless, and lazy, a rhino who couldn't do the job. He just didn't want to be impeached, which the radical left lunatics were preparing to do. I was tough on him in the White House for good reason, so now this moron says about me, to get even, his verbal skills are limited. Well, that's one I haven't heard before. Tell that to the biggest political crowds in the history of politics by far. Bill Barr is a loser." With the implication being, of course, that if you dare testify against Donald Trump, he will use his massive platform to wage war on you and sick his supporters on you. And so now the question becomes, knowing that financial penalties are obviously not enough of a deterrent against Trump, what would deter him? And the answer, of course, is pretrial detention. Remember, the judge's responsibility is to protect the integrity of the case. That means protecting witnesses and defending their ability to testify without fear of retribution, and that also means protecting a jury from being tainted. Donald Trump is violating both of those. So it's not a matter of whether the judge wants to punish him. That's completely irrelevant here. It's a matter of the judge's responsibility to protect the integrity of the trial. And if financial penalties don't do the trick, which they don't seem to be doing, then she will have an obligation to ramp up the stakes. And if that means locking him up pending trial, then so be it. Now, you'll notice Alina Habba's argument had nothing to do with the merits and focused solely on the fact that Trump has Secret Service protection. In other words, she's very bizarrely suggesting that Trump couldn't be locked up pending trial because he's got a security detail. I'm not exactly sure what his detail had to do with the judge's absolute right to throw him in pretrial detention, and I'm not exactly sure that she knows either, but of course, when there's no real answer, I guess you just gotta look for whatever random words fill the air. But just to be sure, I asked my Legal Breakdown co-host for his response to this claim by Alina Habba, and well, let's just say he wasn't too impressed either.
Yes, maybe he also has a cloak of invisibility. That's pure and utter nonsense. You know, as a career federal prosecutor in Washington, D.C., Brian, I worked closely with the United States Marshal Service, with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and with the Secret Service, primarily the Secret Service Uniform Division. I have also in recent years, since retiring from the federal government, spoken with others who had retired from the Bureau of Prisons and from the Marshal Service. Full disclosure, I haven't spoken with anybody who's retired from the Secret Service. But here is sort of the accumulated wisdom of people who used to work in the system. There are any number of ways to confine a former president. What most likely would happen is there would be a memorandum of understanding entered into between the Secret Service, the Marshal Service, and the Bureau of Prisons. Basically, the Secret Service would most likely, we don't know because these are uncharted waters, would most likely relinquish their protective responsibilities to the Marshal Service and to the Bureau of Prisons, and that is where and how Donald Trump would be housed and protected. Let me tell you, we have protected inmates that are in facilities all around the country. We have facilities that are specifically designed to house only protected inmates, and the U.S. Marshals also have a role in protecting those inmates who are going to be witnesses in, for example, RICO cases. So it's very dangerous for them to be incarcerated, so we have to incarcerate them safely and securely. It can be done for a former president, notwithstanding the fact that he has Secret Service protection. The law enforcement agencies involved would all coordinate, and they could absolutely find a way to safely and securely confine a former president. Alina Habba has no idea what she's talking about. She is probably just spouting out her client's nonsense.
And of course, to see more episodes of The Legal Breakdown, make sure to subscribe to this channel. You'll remember too that Alina Habba brings up the concept of the First Amendment, and this has been a common refrain among the Trump team, that any effort to gag his speech is a violation of his First Amendment rights. And you would expect that a lawyer might know better, but considering the lawyers that Trump has a habit of hiring, I guess we shouldn't be too surprised that Habba is so clueless here. So that we're clear, an indicted defendant, someone on pretrial release like Donald Trump, does not, I repeat, does not have unlimited free speech rights. The First Amendment is not absolute. That person is subjected to the conditions set by them by the court to protect the orderly administration of justice, and to protect the jury pool from being tainted, and to protect witnesses who are expected to testify at trial, as I mentioned before. So this notion being trotted out by Alina Habba is such a blatant lie, it's no wonder that she feels comfortable representing someone like Donald Trump. And by the way, this is a point that was further expanded on by Glenn.
The First Amendment claim sounds good, but all sorts of constitutional rights actually can and do yield when you are a charged defendant in a federal felony case on release pending trial. For example, a judge can impose a curfew. The judge can tell you, you can't go out of your house after 8 p.m. Well, if you were not in a pretrial status, a judge or a government official could never impose that kind of restraint on your movement. The same holds true with the First Amendment. It yields to the extent that the judge has a responsibility to ensure a free trial untainted by statements made by a defendant, and the Supreme Court has made that clear over and over again.
So look, I'm not here to give any free advice to Alina Habba or any of Trump's attorneys, but I think it goes without saying that when your client is a stark raving mad lunatic with a physical incapability of tempering his own impulses, then maybe, just maybe, don't go on television programs that end with an explicit dare to the judge to throw that same client in pretrial detention for his very blatant violations of his own conditions of release. But I guess when recklessness is your entire legal strategy, this is exactly what we can expect. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.